Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to cover the story of Skylar Neese and how two people that she trusted the most went on to be her downfall, as being the third wheel can be fatal in the end. So without any further ado, let's get on to the video. Skylar Neese was born on the 10th of February in 1996 in Morgantown in West Virginia to her parents Dave and Mary. Her father Dave worked as a product assembler at Walmart. As for her mother Mary, she worked as an administrative assistant in cardiac lab. Skylar grew up as an only child and is described as a lovely girl and also very easygoing child growing up. In general, just very kind-hearted, sweet and genuine person. Her parents said that Skylar, all in all, just had a huge heart. She enjoyed playing outside, she adored animals and would even bring home strays that she found outside here and there. Once Skylar entered second grade, she met a girl called Sheila Eddy, and the two girls grew pretty close with each other. Since the two went to different schools, they actually met at the community center, but that didn't stop their friendship, as the girls would still find ways to constantly hang out. Now, as for Sheila, she did have some issues going on at home, as her parents had gotten divorced when she was just about 4 years old. Sheila, just like Skylar, was an only child, so she felt pretty lonely and misunderstood with her parents' divorce. And that was just one major effect that Sheila and Skylar bonded over. Once David and Mary met Sheila, they instantly liked her, and knowing how her life was at home, they tried to make her feel as welcomed as possible. Sheila was being invited over for dinners, play dates, sleepovers, and after a while Sheila was becoming one of the family members, where she would just come to the house of the Neeses and walk right inside, and the parents were completely fine with that. As for Skylar, she really enjoyed having Sheila around, as they completed each other perfectly. Sheila was more of a wild child and Skylar was more of the calm one. And eventually, as the two girls started high school, Sheila transferred to university high school, so Skylar and Sheila both shared the same school and could spend even more time together. Skylar really enjoyed going to school, and she was also a pretty good student on top of it. All the teachers liked her, and Skylar wanted to become a lawyer. So she had a plan and also very good chances, as she was extremely ambitious to achieve her goals. Her parents used to joke here and there and say that the way that Skylar used to argue, she would definitely be a good lawyer in the future. And Skylar also started to work at a Wendy's, where two of her other friends also worked in. And all in all, she was just a very confident and also pretty popular girl in school. And in times, this point also of Sheila's parents had moved on and found themselves new partners, and eventually went on to remarry. Now, as for Sheila, she actually liked her new stepfather, and with the new family dynamic, she also started to feel more comfortable at home. So for the short moment, it looked like everything was going to be fine. Skylar and Sheila were growing even closer, and as the friendship grew and progressed, they added another girl during their freshman year to their group called Rachel Strohoff. Before she started high school, Rachel attended a private Catholic school, as her family was also very religious. Rachel is described as someone who liked to be the center of attention, where she would not only participate in school plays but would also always be the star in them. So the three of them spent a lot of time together, not only face to face, but girls also liked to chat with each other mainly through Twitter. Their bond just seemed to be unbreakable, and as Skylar's parents are concerned, they were very happy that their daughter had found herself such good and loyal friends. Unfortunately though, jealousy would start slowly to tear the group apart, as Rachel and Sheila seemed to grow closer and closer together and therefore started to exclude Skylar. All of the three girls were hooked at Twitter, but as for Sheila, it seemed like she put every last thought on there, and it did came across some of the things that she would write. She would post things like, "Stepdad, stop walking around the house with other shirt," It's gross, not to mention your boobs are bigger than mine. I wish it would be acceptable to be naked all the time. If you talk about how you're madly in love with Justin Bieber, I'd probably want to stab you. It's okay if you hate me as long as I hated you first. And another quote was, "There is a reason why sober and bored almost sound exactly the same." And Sheila wasn't really that popular among Skylar's other friends. They didn't like her because she was so extremely wild. And they also saw just how bad of an influence she really was on Skylar. And her parents also started to notice that Rachel was also starting to change. And that the two girls have now started to kind of also change Skylar with them. Skylar's friends did try to talk to her about it, but she just didn't see their point. Because to her, Sheila was like a sister, and with Rachel in the mix, they all felt drawn to each other's personalities. And Rachel's friends also tried to talk to her about Sheila. But again, she didn't want to hear about it. To Rachel, Sheila was the coolest, most badass person. And she was determined to keep this friendship going. And it seems like there was more than just friendship going on between Rachel and Sheila, as there were rumors going around the school that the two girls had started dating each other, and that's the reason why they were so protective of one another. And over time, Skylar was being excluded from the group. And Rachel and Sheila just started to become very mean to Skylar. They would make plans all the time and not invite Skylar, but they would let her know about it. And they would also start to wear the same clothes to show that it's only the two of them that belong together. And this would cause huge arguments between Skylar and Sheila. She didn't understand why she changed so drastically and how she could forget her that easily when it was only them at first. So Rachel definitely drove a wedge between them, and Skylar was just so frustrated with this whole situation. So she then went on to Twitter and wrote, "I tell the whole school all of the crap I have on everyone, which is a lot. Too bad my friends are having lives without me. You're a two-faced and obviously effing stupid. If you thought I wouldn't find out, just know I know. Hope you don't expect me to give a F anymore. #bye." On the 4th of July in 2012, Skylar was staying at home since Rachel and Sheila had once again made plans with each other without inviting Skylar. And this of course upset Skylar very much. Her parents also started to realize that she was being left out a lot more recently, and they started to become very concerned for the daughter. So Skylar was very sad, upset, angry, and frustrated. So her mom told her, like, maybe try and occupy yourself with something. Do your homework, try to distract yourself. But Skylar had something else to take her mind off things, as she went on Twitter where she wrote, "Sick of being at effing home. Thanks friends, love to hang out with you all too." And so the next night, on the 5th of July in 2012, Skylar was working at Wendy's until 10 p.m. And once she got home, her parents were relaxing in the living room, just watching TV, so Skylar sat for a few minutes with her parents, and then gave them both a goodnight kiss and went on to her bedroom. But she didn't plan on going to sleep, as she was actually planning on sneaking out. So at around 12:30 a.m., so now it's the 6th of July in 2012, Skylar took her cell phone, purse and wallet and climbed out of her window. There is a video where you can clearly see Skylar leaving her house and getting into the back seat of a car. Unfortunately, this wasn't Skylar's first time sneaking out. She had started to rebel as the three girls would go across the Pennsylvania border to Stark City ever so often to smoke weed. And on top of that, the girls had also discovered alcohol and they were drinking rather heavily. So the next morning, Mary and Dave got up and started their usual morning routine. And the plan was once David finished his work at Walmart, he would come back home so Skylar could use his car to go to her work at Wendy's. So Dave got home, and as he went to go to Skylar's room, he realized that the door was locked and Skylar rarely locked her door. It was just something that she barely did, and let alone in the middle of the day. But Dave didn't really think anything of it, probably thinking that she just wanted to be alone for a while. But once he knocked and called her name and got no response, that's when he started to get worried. Dave went outside of the house, and that's when he saw that the window to her bedroom was open. So he quickly put two and two together that Skylar snuck out of the house in the middle of the night. But the question is, since it was now the middle of the day, where was Skylar? Dave tried his best to calm himself down and think clearly. He thought to himself, well, if Skylar snuck out, surely one of her friends must know where she is. So he called Sheila, but she tells him that yes, she did talk to her at around midnight, but that she hasn't seen or heard from her ever since. Dave also asked Sheila if she had any idea where she could be. And to be honest, because at the moment Dave wasn't concerned about punishing her. He wanted to know that his daughter was safe. But after Sheila also didn't know where Skylar could be, Dave called his wife Mary and explained the situation to her. And Mary, of course, also concerned, told him, look, just try to stay calm. Maybe she's on her way to work, because Skylar never ditched work. So Mary is just like, let's just try to stay calm and then we'll call at her work. But the Wendy's where Skylar worked actually called the parents first, asking where Skylar was, if she was sick or if something had happened because she didn't show up to work. So now, still with no sign of Skylar, Mary and Dave called 911 to report their daughter missing. And they also called up every relative and friend that they could come up with, desperate to know where their 16-year-old daughter was. Eventually, Sheila called them back with a confession. She tells them that she and Rachel had actually picked up Skylar at around 11 p.m. Which, side note, of course it's not true, since there is actual video footage showing Skylar leaving her house at 12:31 a.m. She went on to say that they were hanging out and that they then dropped Skylar off down the street, and the reason that she wanted to be dropped off down the street was because she didn't want Dave and Mary to hear her sneak back inside the house. Sheila and her mother went to the house of the Neeses, and they started to look for Skylar, asking around the neighborhood if anyone has seen Skylar or if they had heard something during the night. And by that time, Skylar's parents, as well as the police, had seen the camera footage, which showed exactly when Skylar left the house. So now it is clear to all of them that Sheila's story is not true. And because it was at first unclear who the car belonged to, police thought that maybe Skylar was a runaway, that maybe she had a secret boyfriend or just wanted to rebel. So because the situation wasn't clear, there wasn't an Amber Alert placed. And once the parents heard that, they tried everything they possibly could to make the police understand that Skylar would never run away and not return home, or at least stay away for that long, without at least telling her friends about it. Her parents knew that their daughter didn't just run away. Skylar just wasn't the person to start a new life somewhere else without at least telling the parents. And besides, if she really ran away, why did she leave so much stuff behind, like her toothbrush, contact lenses, as well as her cell phone charger? And it's also not like Skylar. And the parents were fighting, in fact. They had a very close relationship. And Skylar snuck out, but she enjoyed experiencing life. She was happy, she loved school, and she also loved her job. So Mary and Dave decided that they wouldn't just do nothing. They started to print out flyers with a picture, description, and also where she was last seen. Sheila would call Skylar's parents a couple times a day asking for any news, if the police had any clues, and she would keep repeating things like, I wish I knew something. I just want to help in any way that I possibly can. Just a few days after Skylar was reported missing, Sheila was again at the house of the Neeses, and she and Skylar's mom were sitting in Skylar's room, hugging each other, trying to comfort and be there for one another. And on the 9th of June in 2012, Skylar's case was finally being taken serious. after she has still not returned. The West Virginia State Police and the FBI officially started the search for Skylar. Officer Jessica Colbank interviewed Sheila once the search had started. This officer would actually describe Sheila as a narcissist. Throughout the whole interview, although Sheila seemed very cooperative, the officer said that something was just off with her. On the 6th of July, so the day that Skylar first was missing, Sheila and her mother were on a boat trip with some of her mother's friends. Well, this friend had noticed a huge cut on her ankle. So that's when she told Sheila's mother about it, and both of them found it pretty weird, like, where did this cut come from? On the 7th of July, so one day after Skylar went missing, Rachel was actually set to visit a church camp. So her questioning was actually done over the phone, and whilst talking to the officers, she seemed pretty calm. She would say things like, I don't know where Skylar is, and ask Sheila, she knows way more than I do. But she did, however, agree that she would come in for an in-person interview once she came back home. But once she returned, the police had to track Rachel down and bring her in, which already was very weird in the eyes of the investigators. And once she was at the police station, Rachel just kept on repeating the same words that she said over the phone. And what was even more suspicious was that Rachel and Sheila seemed to have the exact same story, exact same words even. So that's when the police was like, okay, maybe the girls are hiding something. So the investigators tried to look into it as best as they could. And because the girls were so active on social media, this was the first thing that was looked into. And they also looked through Skylar's journal and her last entry. Skylar wrote how Sheila would probably get away with anything, and that she would also get all the attention from the boys. It seemed almost like an obsessive way how Skylar wrote about her, because Skylar also wrote a lot of details about Sheila's sex life, even mentioning how Sheila would also hook up with women. And Skylar wrote about when the three of them had a sleepover at Rachel's house. The girls would take beverages out from her mom's cabinet, how they started to drink rather heavily, and that at some point Sheila and Rachel had started to hook up with each other. Skylar also talked about how uncomfortable she was to be present in such an intimate moment that she went into the bathroom until Sheila and Rachel were finished. Just 2 weeks after that sleepover, Skylar took to Twitter and wrote, I tell the whole school all the BS I have on everyone, which is a lot. Hashtag if I could get away with it. So the detectives were not only looking into the social media from Sheila and Rachel, but also Skylar, and that's when they came to a post, which was made by Skylar on the 5th of July, saying, you doing crap like this is why I will never completely trust you. Skylar also made another post saying, all I do is hope. And once school started again, rumors started to spread like wildfire, where people would start to come up with different theories, like that Skylar ran away. Maybe she ran away with a secret boyfriend that no one could know about. Maybe she had fallen victim of online catfishing. One rumor was even that she had been kidnapped and sold into human trafficking. People in school were all kinds, seeming to have a hard time without Skylar. Some were depressed, anxious, scared, because no one knew what was going on, and Sheila had the hardest time, where she would post on Facebook, Skylar, please come back, I seriously cannot deal with school without you. I miss you so much. To which Skylar's dad actually wrote back, she will be home soon, honey, love you. But shortly after the school had started again, the rumors quickly started to turn, and a lot of people believed that Sheila and Rachel had something to do with Skylar's disappearance. One rumor was that Skylar accidentally overdosed, and that Sheila and Rachel were there, but maybe they were just scared and hit their party. On the 3rd of September, a warrant was issued to take all electronic devices off of Sheila and Rachel, since they were seen as the main suspect, and the police actually told Skylar's parents about their suspicion. Not necessarily that the two girls were guilty, but that they definitely knew more than they let on to. On the 2nd of October in 2012, a picture was posted by Sheila of her and Skylar on a Facebook page that was created for Skylar, where Sheila wrote under her picture, "Skylar, sorry I haven't posted in a while. School had been taking up all my time. Me and Rachel miss you so much, especially at lunch. We sit at the lunch table alone. Come back so we don't look like loners anymore. LOL. School is hard without you. Actually, everything is hard without you. I seriously think about you 24/7 and I miss talking to you on the phone day and night. I know you wouldn't like some of the things that are being said lately." Now, people were already starting to get really suspicious and believing that the two girls definitely had something to do with the disappearance of Skylar, until things eventually escalated on Twitter. Two anonymous accounts were created, and these two accounts started to follow Sheila and Rachel. And since the two accounts were created, Sheila and Rachel also started to receive weird messages. Luke 12:2 wrote, "Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed or hidden that will not be known. Being pretty little liars down together. #promise to never leave you cold. And what you gonna do when they come for you." And upon receiving this message, Sheila actually wrote back saying, "No one on this earth you can handle me and Rachel. If you think you can, you're wrong." And regarding the investigation, police realized quickly that Sheila lied to them and that she never picked up Skylar at 11 p.m. like she had claimed, when in reality police saw Skylar getting into a mysterious car at 12:31 a.m. They soon discovered that Toyota Camry belonged to Sheila. So by this point, police was like, these girls definitely know something that they don't want to tell us. And we need to find out quickly what it is exactly that they are hiding. And because they knew that Sheila and Rachel were so present on social media, they created a profile pretending to be a student from their high school so that they could keep an eye on what exactly the two were posting. And mind you, this officer had to go through thousands and thousands of posts on Facebook and Twitter, also needing to Google certain hashtags and shorthands that were used. And whilst looking into their social media life, the officers grew more and more suspicious of Sheila because she would tweet all about getting drunk, skipping school, partying, and she is a teenager. So it's not that far-fetched that she would talk about this stuff, but what was weird was that Sheila would tweet a lot and then randomly post about Skylar saying, "I miss you, please come back." And Sheila, as well as Rachel, were brought in time and time again for further questioning, but their story never changed. And they still kept using the same words, saying word for word exactly what the other one would say. But one thing that the officers could notice by now was that Rachel just was a wrecking ball of nerves. She was nervous and almost intimidated whilst being questioned. Sheila, on the other hand, was, well, not happy, but she was giddy, confident, and to the officers it almost seemed like she was trying to flirt with them. Another thing that made them suspect was that Sheila was always asking how the investigations were going and if police had any clues, and openly asked for police to keep her updated if they had any news. Rachel, on the other hand, she didn't want anything to do with it. She didn't want to know anything, she just wanted to be left alone. And she also stayed away from Skylar's parents, unlike Sheila, who would still visit them regularly. So we are now in the winter of 2012, when police access to other security camera footage from a different location. So now it was clear that Sheila, Rachel and Skylar drove on the night of Skylar's disappearance to Blacksville. Now, the police originally thought that maybe the girls were doing some kind of drugs and Skylar ended up overdosing, and that Sheila and Rachel were just too scared to admit it since they didn't want to get into any trouble. And up until this point, the story of the girls was always the same, until Rachel was called in for further questioning, where she said that Skylar ran into the woods that night and that her and Sheila tried to run after her, but lost her and couldn't find her anymore. And after hearing this, Sheila was also immediately called, but almost as suspected, she again had the exact same story as Rachel. So it was clear that Sheila and Rachel talked with each other, getting their stories straight. So by mid-December, a polygraph test was set to see once and for all if the girls were lying or not, and Sheila failed her test. So she was clearly lying about something. As for Rachel, before coming in to take her test, she and her father were on the way to their lawyer, and on the drive there, Rachel rips the car door open and jumps out of the car and runs to Sheila's house. Once she is there, she begs Sheila's mom, Tara, to help her, since Tara apparently was trying to interfere with the investigations. And as soon as Skylar's parents found out that Sheila had failed her test, so Mary took to Facebook on the 16th of December in 2012 and wrote how Sheila and Rachel were lying the whole time, and also mentioned that she didn't believe that her daughter was alive at this point. As for Sheila, she didn't really seem to care anymore, but Rachel was starting to suffer mentally, especially after people also started to bash her on social media. And Rachel's parents were also so worried that they tried to keep Rachel away from Sheila, as they thought that she just wasn't a good influence on their daughter. And Rachel's parents, who were divorced, actually decided to move back together because they saw just how much the daughter was down spiraling, and they were so concerned about Rachel that they didn't even tell her that her father was moving in back with them. Once Rachel found out that her father was moving in back with them, she pretty much had a complete breakdown. She was running around their neighborhood, screaming, crying, just breaking down. And her parents ran straight after her, and when they managed to get a hold of her, they actually locked Rachel up in her room and called the police, who then was taken into the Chestnut Ridge Psychiatric Facility in Morgantown in West Virginia. Upon hearing the news of Rachel's breakdown, Sheila went to the facility but was denied to see her. And once Rachel was released 5 days later, her parents immediately took her to their lawyer, and that's when she finally took her polygraph test. Police started to ask her questions, but they were more than shocked. Once Rachel said, "We stabbed her to death," and everyone was shocked. There were so many theories about what could have happened to Skylar, but I think no one really considered that she was murdered by her two best friends. And once Rachel confessed that they had stabbed her, she started to tell the whole truth, how Skylar and Sheila spent their spring break in Myrtle Beach, and that they had been arguing the whole time, and that once they had returned, Sheila kept on complaining about how Skylar was to her, and that she didn't really want anything to do with her, and that she had also said to Rachel that she wants Skylar gone. And it's later known that some teachers and classmates actually heard that conversation where the two girls talked about what the best way could be to get rid of a body. And a few of Skylar's friends actually came up to Skylar and told her, like, watch out for these two, they are no good. But Skylar just didn't really think anything of it. Now, what is also worth mentioning is that while the police officers was going through all the tweets and posts, they came across Skylar's tweets on the 4th and 5th of July, where she was ranting on social media how Sheila and Rachel were neglecting her. But the weird thing is that neither Sheila nor Rachel tweeted at all that day. So what happened the night of Skylar's disappearing? Well, Sheila texted Skylar asking her to sneak out, and at first Skylar didn't really want to, but she thought, well, why not? It's summer, let's have a little fun. So Sheila picked her up at 12:31 a.m. with Rachel in the passenger seat, and they drove off to Blacksville in Magnolia County. So when they arrived, they got to the usual place to smoke some weed when Skylar realized that they had left a lighter in the car, And as she went to get it, Sheila and Rachel started to count to 3, took out their knives, which they had took from their home, and started to stab Skylar. Now, according to Rachel, she said that once Skylar was stabbed in the knee and fell backwards, that when she actually stopped, but Sheila just kept on going. And Rachel said that Skylar died from blood loss, and that she and Sheila watched how she bled to death. She also goes on to say that the original plan was to bury her, but since the ground was too hard to actually dig a hole, they placed her under a tree and tried to cover her as best as they could. Once they were finished, Sheila and Rachel returned home at around 6 a.m. And what's the first thing Sheila does after murdering her friend? She goes to Twitter, where she posts, "Always keep your cool." So after the police finally heard the full story, they asked Rachel, "Why did you do it?" To which she just replied, "We didn't like her and we wanted her gone." So police took Rachel for her to show the officers where Skylar's body was. But since it was winter and so much snow, they actually had to wait until the snow started to melt. On the 4th of July in 2013, the police had received a warrant to get every single knife from Sheila's house, and as they looked through her car and truck, they discovered blood in the car. And Sheila actually had no idea that Rachel had snitched on her and gave her confession. But Sheila was actually very smart, and she realized quickly what was happening. And police got Rachel to try and get Sheila to confess as well, while being wired up. Rachel, though, didn't really want to do this, and she was also a wrecking ball of nerves. And the two girls never got on the Skylar topic. Now, I don't know if Rachel somehow managed to warn Sheila, but they didn't even mention her with one word. But nonetheless, as soon as the snow had finally started to melt down, police, now also in possession of Skylar's blood, drove back out to that area that Rachel had told them, and that's when they finally found the body of Skylar Neese. It was more than clear that Skylar had indeed been stabbed and murdered, and whilst police tried to gather evidence and find Skylar's body, Rachel and Sheila were actually being homeschooled to make sure that they couldn't see each other. The official public release was on the 13th of March, so 3 months after they found Skylar's body, and the people were just so devastated once they learned that Skylar was indeed dead, because a lot of people still held on hoping and praying that she would be found alive. And although a lot of people were already suspecting that Sheila and Rachel had something to do with it, and a confession was also made on Rachel's part, Sheila still tried her hardest to play the devastated best friend card on social media. Sheila also posted a tweet on Skylar's birthday where she wrote, "Rest easy, Skylar, you'll always be my best friend. I miss you more than you could ever know." And Rachel also made another post where she wrote, "Rest easy, baby. I love and miss you more than anything. May you finally have justice." Now, I don't know if they really tried to play the innocent card here, or what exactly they tried to do, but it definitely backfired, as the people started to realize just how involved the two really were in the death of Skylar. Now, another tweet worth mentioning is from Sheila that she made on the 1st of April at 1:37 a.m. saying, "We really did go on 3, referring to how they counted to 3 and then proceeded to stab their best friend from behind. On the 1st of May in 2013, Rachel Shove turned herself in and would pledge guilty to second-degree murder, feloniously, willfully, maliciously, and intentionally causing the death of Skylar Neese. Around the same time, the official results came back, confirming that the blood found inside Sheila's car was indeed the blood of Skylar. And so Sheila Eddy was arrested on the same day that the results came back and was charged with first-degree murder. Sheila was put to a grand jury in West Virginia, where she was charged with 1 count of kidnapping, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder and 1 count of first-degree murder. But Sheila actually pled not guilty to all the charges. And Sheila was also charged as an adult, meaning her name was made public and the people really hated her. On the 22nd of October in 2013, the trial had officially started, and since Rachel was still struggling with her mental health, her attorney asked for her testimony to be suppressed, and her lawyer also asked for her trial to be postponed, which was granted, and a new day was set on the 28th of January in 2014. Rachel and her defense team also decided that it was the best for Rachel to take a plea deal, and in return there wouldn't be any additional charges pressed against her. On the 24th of January in 2014, Sheila Eddy pledged guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. But she did receive her punishment with mercy, which means that Sheila would be eligible for parole after serving 15 years. Rachel Shove also pledged guilty and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. But her punishment, just like Sheila's, came with mercy, meaning Rachel would be eligible for parole after serving 10 years. And as far as I know, both of the girls are still locked up behind bars. So yeah, that's it for today's case. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, don't forget to leave me a comment on which case you would like to see me cover next. I hope I see you all in my next video. Take care, bye!